Okay, we have our colors finished. We have everything kind of roughly sized the way we need it. Now we need to add all the requirements for this, which are the logos that are the sponsor of the Film Fest and also the actual information. So first we'll check on, let's get this out of preview mode. Let's go check on what needs to be included. We have the 9 by 12. I'm going to screenshot everything here about what is required. And this is usually what I do when I'm working on a project, because I'll have an email from the client telling me what they need changed or what they want, or I'll have a creative brief, and I want to make sure those are right on hand so I get everything right. So I need to put in the actual copy. I have the date just kind of as a placeholder for small copy. So let's first kind of play with that and set it up so it's ready. So let's say that we're going to use this copy. I'm going to make it a little smaller so it doesn't compete. I'm going to make it centered. So that means it's centered in the box, and then we can center the box itself on the align. So I've got the copy centered, and it's the same typeface as this, I believe. This is Von Eyck. Let's make this the same. And then I'm going to go to my paragraph styles, and I'm going to make a new paragraph style with that text highlighted and call it body copy. And that'll be just a good starting point because I have a couple other things to add. I have to put the ticket information, so I could copy that right off the assignment, Command C or Control C if you're on a PC. And I'm going to just duplicate that box over here by holding the Option or Alt key, and then Command V or Control V. And I can see that that type is actually going to have to go either smaller or the box is bigger because it is not fitting in there. So let's do both. Let's make this type, I can already tell this is not going to be a good body copy type, but just for now, let's take it down to 18 point. And then on our paragraph styles, you're going to see the plus because we've altered that style. So let's just redefine. And now the date will go smaller too. And I'll come in here and I'm going to center that box. And then we need one more bit of information. We need to say the city. So I don't know if I'm going to put it with the date or not. So I am going to make a separate box. And I'll go back here and copy Newport Beach, California, and place that in there. Command or Control V. Okay, so now I actually have the required type. Once I start playing with typefaces, I might arrange this differently. So for now, I'm just going to leave it here. The other thing that I need is the sponsor logos, and that's where it gets much trickier. So this is where the sponsor logos go, and what we want to do is make them look like they do on their website, where they're perfectly evenly spaced. These are the sponsors for this year, and there's 6 of them. Now luckily they've already converted these to PNG with an invisible background, so they're really easy to place on a solid color. So what I did is I just downloaded all of these. I said save image as. So now I can go in here, come in nice and close on that, and I can place them. So I'm going to say place, and I'm going to grab all 5 logos and open it. And now you see my cursor is loaded up with all 5 logos. And I'm just going to start on the margin, and I'm just going to kind of guess at the placement and the size, because I'm going to have to do this in a more objectified way than just eyeballing it. But let's get these out here first. So those are all 5 logos. First thing you want to do, since we're going to be centering and adjusting space between these, make the image box that it's in go right to the edge of the logo. It should anyways. When you export a logo, you should make it in a file that goes right to the edge. So you can see the Kia logo is perfect. That's because that's the space they put in the file. But this one has a lot more, and what that'll do is that'll put the space between these logos based on the box it's in. Fashion Island's good. We want it to be based on the space between the logos. So first of all, I can see that these logos can go bigger. So I can grab them all. Now there's 2 ways I could size this. One is the power scale that I taught you before, which is Shift Press Command or Control, and then you just pull it. And what that does is it sizes the logo itself and the image box it's in. So I could size it like that, which works well. Or I could come up here, I'm in Classic. So if you look at my workspace, it is Essentials, well, it's MDV, that's me, but it's based on Essentials Classic. And that's put all this information at this top menu bar. So I can use that. Do you see these little squares over here in the corner, the reference point? I can put that on the left, and that means that I'm going to size these, and the left, where it's sitting on the margin, is not going to move. And I'm just going to keep sizing them until I get maybe to the right margin. So those are the two ways that you can size things. If I had put that reference point on the right side, then as I sized it, the right side would have stayed stable and it would have added from the left. So these are really good ways to size things visually. Now the other thing I have to do is I have to create even space between these. So what you can do is you can go to Align Objects, and you see here, this is on my Properties panel where it says Distribute Objects. So I'm going to distribute objects based on their horizontal centers because we made the boxes the size of the logos. So they're going to center them out with space, and right now it's set on 1.72. So if I click on that, it's putting 1.72 spacing in between these logos, and that is perfect actually. So let's first put it on our preview mode. Yeah, that looks good. So you can adjust that. So that's probably perfect because I tried it before I got on this video. But let's try it and move it. So let's say that that was not really enough spacing and we wanted more. Then you just put in the spacing you want and you hit it again. And then you can go spacing down and hit it again. So now to line these up top to bottom so that they're centered, you can do the same thing. Just make the image box the size of the actual logo, as close as you can get. And now we'll grab all these, and make sure you're grabbing the image box, not the image itself. So for these, we don't actually want to distribute this spacing, we just want to align it. And what we want to do is this one right here, where we're going to align the vertical centers and make sure that the box around the type is closer. And it's moved it up here, but that's okay. That's because we have it set on the page. In fact, let me show you how we could correct that. So right here, we want to say align to selection. So we're aligning these selections to each other vertical center. And there you go. Perfect. Now I'm going to set these on the bottom margin. The lowest logo seems to be the GAMFF and Newport Beach. We have to set it right on that bottom margin because everything in this sits on that. So that just means that we have to make the box that holds the logos larger. Now, we want to distribute the spacing even above the logo and below. So this is going to be a little bit more old school. I'm going to make a box that goes below the logo. I'm going to make it like bright yellow, and I'm going to make sure that there's that much space above the logo, which means this has to go even larger. Now those are centered in that space. So that means that this is going to have to go up. Maybe this will go up, something like that. Okay, so now our logos are perfectly in the space. We might have to change the color of this background as we're designing. Maybe this will go a darker blue or something like that. There's just a couple other things that we want to tighten up before we're done here. So let's start with the type. We've got the type kind of in the place that we want it. We've moved all the graphics around and such. But if you've stacked your type like this, there's still a little close-up work that you're going to need to do. So what you want to do is drag a guide from the rulers on the left and pick one line. I'm going to put it right on the in Newport. You can see right there. And then I'm going to put it on the T. So we're going to fit the rest of this type square to that. And the easiest way to do this is with kerning, because these are all in the ballpark for size. So on this B, I already put an extra space in there, and I can tell because my kerning's at -200, but it still needs to go a little bit Closer to, there we go. Perfect. Now do you see how the H is kind of falling short? Just put your cursor anywhere here where it could use extra space, like between the C and the H, and then go up. And maybe I put a little more between the E and the H. These are little tiny moves that will get you on the mark, whereas if you start changing type size, you're going to get into trouble. So here with film, we need to put that, it's quite a ways from the edge, so I'm going to put a space in here, which then allows me to go right here and adjust the space, and I've got it right on that line. But now you can see film is falling short on the right. So there's lots of space I can put between the I and the L. So I'm just going to bump that over and a little bit between the F and the I, and now we're there. Same with Fest. The letter form itself just doesn't go to the edge of the type box, so I'm going to put a space there so that I can then take negative space and bump it backwards. So now it's right on there, just like film. And it needs a little bit of bump to the right, so I'm just going to put my cursor between the F and the E and kern that out. So that's the difference between kerning and tracking. Tracking, you highlight a word and take out space. But kerning, you just put your cursor in and you bump it up or down. So now this looks good. Probably the only thing is maybe the leading. So I'm going to take the preview mode so I can look at this and see. You could make it a little tighter. Just remember that leading applies to the line below. So if I select this line, and I'll just start bumping that down from 100 to maybe 93. That looks good. I could do the same thing with any of these. Maybe Beach needs to go closer to Newport. So now Newport and Beach are kind of closer to each other, and then Film Fest, so that looks good. Now the other issue we have here with type is that this type is considered your secondary or more information-based type. It needs to be very, very readable, and this one is not. And the main reason is that the X height of the letters are supposed to be halfway up the capital, but they're all the way up. So it's like lowercase type mixed with uppercase type, and it's just very difficult to read at small sizes. Now, as the big type, the Newport Beach Film Fest, no problem. So that's really a display typeface, this Phonique. Great for big display type, not great for body copy. So it'll be pretty easy to replace that. I'm just going to find a type that goes well with Film Fest. So do you see how Film Fest is kind of clean and pointy and sans serif? So let's see what we can find. I can highlight any one of these lines, and I'm going to go to a sans serif. I'm going to pick something with a regular X height because that makes it really easy to read for body copy. So all I'm asking for is a sans serif with a regular X height. And as I go down here, I can kind of see that this one's not bad, Avenir. So if I choose that, you can see right here under my paragraph styles it has a plus. So this little icon will redefine. See that type, once you see it in all the lines, it's kind of boring. So I'm going to keep trying. So I'm going to grab October again. And that's what makes it so nice to use style sheets, is you can make these little adjustments without having to select each line and change it. So I'm going to keep going and see if I can find something with a little bit more style than that so the type doesn't seem boring in comparison. This looks good. Futura is actually not condensed, but regular Futura would be a good choice because it's nice and round. Do you see how the exaggerated roundness of the C in Beach? So I want something pretty round like that. So this looks good. Let's see what that looks like when I redefine the style. Yeah, much better. The other thing I want to do is this Newport Beach. I'm going to make that all capitals also because the October date is all capitals, and I think this might read better together. So I can just go over to the character panel and I can put that on all caps. I'm not going to redefine that as my body copy because I don't want it to apply to this tickets line. So I'm just going to leave that. But if I did want to make the type a little bit smaller, like just 1 point smaller, then I would redefine and then all go 1 point smaller. Or if I wanted to change it to medium and then I redefine, and it all goes medium. So you can just keep making little tiny changes and getting it just right by having all that body copy assigned to a style sheet. Now, if I wanted to make the tickets at smaller type than this, I wouldn't redefine the style sheet. I would just make this smaller so I could go down to 12, and then I would just leave it and not redefine. But I like them all the same type here. The other thing I want to visit before we go to our final file is this bar. It seems kind of big. So what I can do, this is 1/2 inch margin. Remember I said you could change your margin once you start working on your file? So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to select these logos. So they're that high up there because they're sitting on the margin, but I can change the margin here. So right now I have 1/2 inch margin. I could go down just a couple clicks to like 0.375. So now I just have to move these logos down, and that will allow me to make this box smaller. Remember the method that I showed you? Just make a yellow box from the edge of the page to the bottom of the logo. And you can't center it in the box with the align tool because it's got the bleed on it. But you can kind of just do this. Sometimes I use the little square box for aligning things. So I can take it all the way down to there, and I think that's going to help a lot. Let's see. Yeah, that's better. And then, of course, you can change the color of this. It just has to be a dark color because you have white logos. So I have some colors that I got in the color scheme I was playing around with. So I could use one of those or even make it more orange like the sand. Depending on what you want to do, just make sure that it's a nice dark flat color, and then you're good to go. All we need to do now is get this file ready for print.